Are we ready to go? I'd like to gavel in the City of San Carlos City Council, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency Housing Authority regular meeting for January 8th, 2024. Welcome. We're all present, so no Assembly Bill 2449 requests. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does staff have any changes to the order of the agenda tonight?
No changes to the agenda this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Any requests from my colleagues? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, which is a presentation of a proclamation recognizing January 2024 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Terrific. Do we have someone that's going to receive? Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you. Very happy to provide this proclamation from the City of San Carlos, January 2024 as the Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Whereas the United States designated January 11th as National Human Trafficking Awareness Day in 2007, and beginning in 2010 by presidential proclamation, each January has been designated National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Whereas human trafficking involves commercial sexual exploitation and labor exploitation, it is a human rights violation and a violation of both federal and California law. It also promotes the breakdown of families and communities, fuels organized crime, deprives countries of human capital, undermines public health, and imposes large economic costs. Whereas forced labor, involuntary domestic servitude, and commercial sexual exploitation of adults and youth have been found to exist within local communities, and whereas public awareness about human trafficking still needs to reach broader communities and communicate more information about the nuances of this crime, and whereas this County of San Mateo has dedicated resources, including the San Mateo County Human Trafficking Program, and has supported the efforts of San Mateo County Police Chiefs and Sheriff's Association, and has partnered with other governmental and non-governmental organizations to identify and address human trafficking within San Mateo County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, John Dugan, Mayor of San Carlos, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim January 2024 as Human Trafficking Prevention Month in the City of San Carlos, and encourage the community to support the County of San Mateo's efforts in the fight against human trafficking. Presented this 8th day of January 2024. Thank you. Great. Feel free to provide some comments.
Thank you, Mayor Dugan and City Council members. Thank you for issuing this proclamation to bring the crime of human trafficking to the public's attention. My name is Pamela Estes. I'm the Human Trafficking Program Coordinator for San Mateo County. I'm pleased to be here tonight to accept the proclamation to raise awareness about this heinous crime that happens in the United States and also happens in our county. The largest labor trafficking case, just to give you a little information about what happened this last year, the largest labor trafficking case ever prosecuted in the state of California came out of San Mateo County. In February 2023, the San Mateo County Superior Court sentenced 4 members of the Gamos family, owners of Rainbow Bright adult residential and child care businesses located in Daly City and some of the other cities in northern part of the county, to multiple years in state prison and over $2 million in restitution following their conviction for human trafficking and for wage theft, stealing from their employees, and this happened in a period of time over a decade before it was identified. The family specifically targeted members of the Filipino community, which is not uncommon that immigrant persons who are more vulnerable will be exploited. In another example, just last month, in December of 2023, a 48-year-old East Palo Alto man was convicted of human trafficking and pimping a woman from our county through a Redwood City sting conducted by the Redwood City Police. The San Mateo County Human Trafficking Program conducted a voluntary assessment of local agencies back in 2021 just to get a scope of the prevalence of this problem, because victims rarely identify. Those who have a lot of vulnerabilities are afraid to talk to law enforcement. They're afraid to talk to other people to let them know what's going on. And some of them don't even understand the labor exploitation that takes place against them because of just their not educated about labor laws. But we did a voluntary assessment with local agencies and organizations and determined that there were over 300 trafficking victims that had been identified in a one-year period by local agencies. That's over 23 victims a month. We have no way of knowing how many more people there are that are unidentified because, as I mentioned before, many of them do not self-identify. The San Mateo County Human Trafficking Program tries to strengthen the human trafficking response countywide. We do this in a number of different ways. One example is in September of 2023, we held a Community Day of Action. We had 46 members of the community go out to visit the hotels and motels within our community, which are required to post a notice about human trafficking that's visible to the public, so they have the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and they know that services are available and that they can reach out to the Human Trafficking Hotline for help or just to even make tips. But from that day and through December, we had continuous visits, and we actually made personal visits to all 152 hotels and motels in San Mateo County, including all of those in San Carlos. We were able to give them the revised poster and also talk to them to find out whether or not their staff were actually being trained to identify the signs of human trafficking, which is actually required by law. Another notable step toward prevention that occurred in 2023 was the East Palo Alto City Council issued a ordinance that required anybody who is receiving funds from their city who are serving their youth must be trained around human trafficking. And so this summer we did quite a bit of training for all of their youth serving agencies before the busy summer camp and activity season. Just want to let people know that the Human Trafficking Program is available for consultation and for also trainings and education. And to get more information, you can email us at stophumantrafficking@smcgov.org. That's stophumantrafficking@smcgov.org. So again, I want to thank you again for putting this on your agenda tonight and for raising awareness within our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pamela. I really appreciate all the work you and your organization do in our community. Do any of my colleagues have anything they'd like to say? Seeing none, is there any public comment?
I do not have any slips, and I don't have any hands on Zoom.
Thank you, Crystal. Moving on to item 5B, receive a presentation from HIP Housing on its services to our community. Yeah, welcome, Lauren. Yeah, hello.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Dugan and members of the council. My name is Lauren Borrow, and I'm a member of the HIP Housing Board of Directors. And more importantly, this is Lydia.
Hi, Lydia.
For over 50 years, HIP Housing has been helping low-income San Mateo County residents to find and maintain housing in one of the most expensive areas of the country. HIP Housing is listed in all 21 housing elements of the county, including yours, as a trusted, affordable housing partner. Last year, we worked with over 3,200 individuals and housed over 1,200 people throughout the county. I'm sure many of you are familiar with our programs. We recently launched our Housing Readiness Program. Our Housing Readiness Program empowers San Mateo County community members to navigate our complex local housing landscape, which is very complicated. Experienced staff, volunteers, and interns will support people who contact our agency to help them become more housing ready. This support could include housing resources, assistance completing housing applications, and other activities to help people prepare to enter housing. Our home sharing program helps match people who have spaces in their homes to share with people looking for an affordable place to live. I'm especially proud of our self-sufficiency program, which provides housing assistance and trauma-informed case management to low-income parents and emancipated foster youth. This program is geared towards adults who are in school and have a goal to increase earnings and become financially independent within 5 years. Participants receive a housing scholarship while they complete an education or job training program and find employment in their field. I also wanted to share that nearly 700 people live in properties either owned or managed by HIP Housing. This year, we worked with a total of 82 people right here in San Carlos. We received 41 inquiry calls through our housing readiness program and helped to house 10 individuals through our home sharing program, 19 through our self-sufficiency program, and 12 through our owned or managed properties. So on behalf of HIP Housing, I would like to thank Honorable Mayor Dugan and the members of the council for your longstanding support of our affordable housing programs. And as a symbol of our appreciation, I would like to present to you HIP Housing's 2024 calendar. Lydia, could you hold that up? There you go. And Lydia is here because Lydia is our September winner. And so the calendar, if you're not familiar with our calendar, the calendar features a picture of home from 13 young artists selected from over 320 entries submitted by children in the kindergarten through 5th grades throughout the county. And they've also submitted it with a quote about what home means to them. So I would like to have Lydia read her quote.
So this is Lydia's picture. Lydia, can you read it?
Home is a special place, a good place, and lots of fun. I draw, I color, and play, and eat at home.
Great job. You're such a good reader.
Very nice, Lydia.
So I hope this calendar provides a continual reminder of the importance of a safe and stable home, particularly in a region that is so defined by housing challenges. It would mean a lot to us if you would share HIP Housing's programs with the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lauren and Lydia. Really appreciate the presentation. Housing remains a top goal of San Carlos and has always been a top goal of this particular council. So appreciate that, and especially appreciate the 82 San Carlin families that HIP Housing helped last year. So thank you.
Would it be okay if we took a picture of Lydia?
Of course, yeah.
With you or something?
Yeah, I'll come on down.
Okay.
Should we all come down?
Just the mayor.
All right, it looks like Councilmember Collins would like to comment on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank Lauren for your presentation, and we always enjoy the good works that HIP Housing does. And this calendar is now hanging on the wall of my granddaughter in her room, so thank you again.
Nice. Do any of my other colleagues have a comment on this item? Any public comment, Crystal?
I do not show any hands.
Terrific, thank you. All right, moving on to item 6, council communications and announcements. Do any of my colleagues have something they would like to announce? Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year and also remind the community that the city has a survey going right now for our downtown planning process. It closes on Friday, January 19th. And our colleague in San Mateo, Mayor Diaz-Nash, recently said, "We can't hear what you don't say." And that really resonated for me, and I hope that as we get into the new year, our community has a resolution to be even more involved in giving us their feedback, and I hope to get a lot of responses to our downtown survey, so you can go to sancarlosdowntownplan.com to fill out the survey. Again, it's open until January 19th. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you, Sarah. That was a good announcement. Any of my other colleagues? Very good. Moving on to item 7, consent calendar. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Move to adopt the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Terrific. We have a motion and a second. I would just pause on item 7D just to commend all of our commissioners and folks who serve in our city commissions and boards. We received their annual report this evening, and that service is appreciated and very much needed by the city. So thank you. With that, Crystal, we could take a vote.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh? Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
And Mayor Dugan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Terrific. The consent calendar items are approved. Moving on to item 8, new business. 8A is consideration of a new ordinance amending and replacing San Carlos Municipal Code 6.04 regarding animal control. Jeff, do we have a staff report on this?
Yes, we do, coming from our city attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you tonight, as you stated, is an ordinance amending and replacing our current animal control ordinance at Chapter 6.04 of the San Carlos Municipal Code. The county animal control ordinance was first adopted back in 1951, and San Carlos has tracked the county ordinance for many years. 20 cities in the county, including the city, have adopted animal control ordinances that are the same or substantially the same as the county's ordinance. This will allow the county to continue to enforce the animal control ordinance through the contract that we have with the county. The last amendment was done in 2015, and there had been several updates in prior years. The updates that are suggested through the county ordinance update existing definitions to improve enforcement capabilities and remove potential areas of confusion, particularly relating to dangerous and vicious animal designations, lowers the rabies vaccination age requirement. That's consistent with state law, updates language and enforcement regarding vicious and dangerous animals, removes language indicating that an animal owner may not maintain a dangerous animal in a home with a juvenile person under the age of 18, revises and updates the fee schedule, and further clarifies offenses for which administrative citations may be issued, and retains portions of the existing ordinance with minor changes related to animals in the city of San Carlos, beginning with section 6.04.360. And earlier this evening, I provided a redacted version of the many changes that are in the ordinance. We also have Lori Morton Fizel, the San Mateo County Chief of Animal Control and Licensing. I think she's attending remotely in case there's any questions from the county.
Terrific. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate the report. Do any of my colleagues have questions for our city attorney? Crystal, do we have any public comment on this item?
Pull up that slide. I don't have any slips for anyone in person, and there are no hands on Zoom.
Okay, very good. Do any of my colleagues have any comments they'd like to make on this item? Okay, relatively straightforward item. As I understand it, we are basically adopting the revised model ordinance provided by the county on this item. Are there any particular changes, Greg, that go beyond us just modeling the county?
Yeah, the changes beginning with section .360, I took a look while we were looking at the animal control ordinance. I thought there were a few issues that had come up over the past few years that deserve some cleanup. I added a provision that deals with insects and in particular bees. We have right now we didn't specifically reference bees or insects as potential subjects of animal control, and right now we have a policy that deals with beekeeping. So what I did was I updated the ordinance to allow the council to set regulations for beekeeping by resolution, so that in the future you can update the current regulations as circumstances change without having to amend the animal control ordinance. I also added some issues dealing with what could be considered nuisances in other animals, like when people spill feed or other things that might be attract rats and other rodents. I wanted to have some more clarified language on how we could deal with that. And that's basically the changes I made to our local part that we enforce through my office. But the main part before .360 is going to be enforced by the County of San Mateo.
Got it. And is it fair to say the changes you made to our locally enforced code just reflect your experience enforcing our prior code over the last, 10, 12 years?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to introduce ordinance number,
1609.
was it 801?
1609.
1601, thank you. An ordinance of the City of San Carlos amending and replacing the San Carlos Municipal Code, Chapter 6.04, Animal Control, to align with Chapter 6.04, Animal Control of Title VI of the San Mateo County Ordinance Code to clarify existing definitions, enact additional requirements for animal control, and revise the fees for animal control services.
I'll second.
Terrific. We have a motion and a second. Crystal, could you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
And Mayor Dugan.
Yes. The motion carries, and our animal control ordinance is now updated. Moving on to item 8B, consideration of introducing an ordinance to increase the city council salary under Government Code Section 36516. Jeff, do we have a staff report on this item?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. Our city attorney is presenting on this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you tonight is an updated amendment to the municipal code regarding city council salary under Government Code Section 36516. That ordinance was recently, that code was recently updated under state law to reset the amounts for cities of different populations. For a city with a population under 35,000, the salary that the state requires is $950 per month. the city council last increased their salary under the old rules from $300 per month to $560 per month, although they could have increased it up to $735 a month at that time. I did a rough calculation, and if the council had continued to increase the salary since the last time, it would have added up to about $938 a month, which is similar to what the state is authorizing now. So that was an interesting calculation. Other cities that have not updated their in compliance with the new law, this is just what their current salaries were. Our old salary under the old law was comparable in most cases. Recently, the city of Belmont implemented the new law, and they're to the $950 per month. And it's important to note that the proposed salary increase cannot take effect until after the November election, when you're sworn, when new candidates and new council and existing council members are sworn in. So the council must set it by ordinance under Government Code 36516. And should any council members feel like they do not want to take the salary, there is a provision in the code that allows council members to waive any or all of their salary and benefits. So tonight you would be introducing this ordinance, which will not take effect until the end of this year.
Terrific. Thank you, Greg, for that report. Do any of my colleagues have questions for our city attorney? Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Mayor Dugan. I guess the question I had was, so if we were to go ahead and move this up to 950, sort of with the new state law changes, how does that, is there any sort of cost of living COLA in there? Is it something that we would 5 years from now or 10 years from now would have to go back if the law changed, or is it something that's sort of built in with this new law?
It is built in with the new law. You can't do an automatic increase. You do have to revisit the ordinance from time to time. The law provides that you can increase the compensation in one of two ways, 5% per calendar year. So if you don't look at this again for 2 years, you could increase it 5% each calendar year since the last time you reviewed it. Or there's also a catch-all. If inflation is higher than 5%, you can increase it up to 10% if you base it on a cost of living, the consumer price index cost of living.
And does the overall, that $1,000 cap, does that change, or is that's sort of what the cap is now moving forward?
Yeah, they've just reset the whole program to this new higher number. And if general law cities like San Carlos want to have a salary, they're supposed to use this new number. And then if this population were to increase to 35,000 at some point in the future, the number would be different, and the council could look at that again. But we don't know if that will ever happen.
Okay, so we can make a change here, and then we're not sort of required to. It's sort of up to us then afterwards if we wanted to make another change. It's not sort of mandated in with this new rule.
It's not mandated
Perfect.
to take the future increases.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Councilmember McDowell.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to follow up on Councilmember Rack's question. So if we were to all agree on the 5% annual increase, I saw there was no language in the current ordinance to cover that. Is that something that we need to add in tonight, or do we have to revisit that in 2 years to make that happen?
There's another section in the code that says you can't have automatic increases in your ordinance. So we have to look at it again in the future and do an amendment to the ordinance to increase it in the future.
Okay. So we can't put it in tonight, but we can put it in the future.
What you can do in the future is we can look back and see how many calendar years have passed since your last increase and apply 5% each year, and then you can reset it in the future. But you can't, in this ordinance, we can't put in our ordinance in 2 years the salary will increase by 5%.
Okay. Leave it to the state to make it cumbersome. It's so annoying. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Councilmember Venkatesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, so every 2 years we need to vote on it again, correct?
Well, the law doesn't say you have to do it. You can actually do it every year. It just can't take effect until the next election.
Thank you.
Next election.
Terrific. Any other questions from my colleagues? Any public comment on this item? Crystal?
There are no hands on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion from my colleagues on this item? Boy, I didn't see the order there. Sorry. I will just take it in the same order. Councilmember Rack?
Thank you, Mayor Dugan. So I appreciate this being brought up, and I mean, I think I'm in favor of doing the increase. I think we know, now having been on the council for going into year 6, I see how much time and effort goes into it and some of the costs for some of the regional boards that we participate in and the travel costs. And so I would be in favor of doing the $950. I think that's a fair increase of what we can do. And, I think that would cover things for some time for us.
Thank you, Adam. Councilmember McDowell?
Thank you, Mayor. I too plan to support this tonight, and I wanted to make a couple comments that I think one of our most important jobs as elected leaders is to do everything in our power to develop and encourage the next generation of leaders who will sit in these chairs after us. And when I joined the council in 2018 and going into 2019, my kids were still little. And in order to sit here in these evening meetings, plus serve on all of the extra boards and commissions and council subcommittees that in our next agenda item take up 3 pages of committees that we all serve on, I had to hire babysitters, and my council salary didn't even cover that one expense. So I think if we want to attract the best and the brightest to fill these roles, and if we want a council that is diverse with varied backgrounds and ages, and not just people who are independently wealthy and retired who can do this job as a hobby, then we have to pay as much as we are able. And to be honest, I really wish that we valued our local government officials the way we value other local electeds, like our county supervisors. As Adam mentioned, there are many weeks when this job takes 30 to 40 hours, especially when you serve as mayor. And it's a lot to ask of someone. So, and I would also add that if we were really being progressive, I'd support a child care fund for a council and any commission that meets twice a month, even if it's an emergency child care fund. So tonight, I'm thinking about our future leaders and wanting a diverse council. So I support offering the full amount of the salary. I do support the 5% increase, especially with inflation being the way it is. So I would like to pre-program that discussion if possible. And I would support finding other ways to support those who serve our city on a frequent basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well thought out comments. Appreciate that. Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with previous comments. I'm probably the one council member that will not benefit from this next year, but I still support it. And just doing a little bit of research, some of the things I've long felt I read, and a couple of the comments that I read were that low compensation for public officials shuts out a large number of qualified candidates, particularly low-income residents, single parents, working-class residents, people of color, and young people who would bring much-needed perspective to the council. So it's really sort of a diversity issue that a lot of people may not have thought about. And apparently, when this law was generated, the legislative analyst said, no one runs for city council in order to make money, but low levels of pay make it harder for them to balance their careers and personal obligations with the calling to serve their community. And then I also saw that John Mays himself, the editor of the Daily Journal, wrote nearly a year ago that, basically the same things. People, regular folks with flexible employment they may break through, but there's been a recent trend towards more activists to win able seats, activists able to win seats. And a lot of the decisions that we make as council members affect lots of people that aren't like us, that don't have the incomes we have, that may not be the same color, may not have the same advantages that we do. So I do think it's important, and I plan to support it.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Yeah, I will just echo my colleagues that, it'd be hard to argue we're overpaid. Most months, I would argue we likely don't make minimum wage on the hours we put in here. But obviously, we don't do it for money. But it is pretty obvious that someone of lesser means or struggling or what have you would almost not even be a consideration for them, and I think that's a loss for us. So I'm open to supporting this evening, and I actually appreciated Vice Mayor McDowell's comments on a potential child care fund if we do have parents serving our community who just need child care in order to provide better service and to be there for their family as well. I would support that. So if we wanted to bring that to a future agenda, I'd be open to considering that. With that, if there's no further comments, I would entertain a motion for this item.
One comment, Mayor Dugan. I just want to echo, I would be interested in the child care option. And I think we should also think about sort of a broader discussion. If there's, if you're caring for someone at home who's, an adult as well, you may have, there may be other needs that, so I think having a broader discussion about that would be of interest to me.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. Councilmember Venkatesh? Oh.
I think Ron had a comment.
Oh, your light was on. Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I forgot. I brought the one prop that I had, and that was our budget, which is 548 pages. And with Rebecca's help over the weekend, I clarified that our annual budget is over $60 million. When I came on the council, it was half of that. And we're also, responsible for revenue that approaches $125 million a year. So it's a big responsibility, and I think that there may be people that again don't have the resources, but they have the knowledge and they know how to read budgets, and they would give valuable input to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Unless there's further comment. Councilmember Venkatesh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, being the new person on the council, I don't think people realize how much time you really do put into this. It's not just, I thought it was just a meeting every other week, but we have commissions, we have events that we attend, and we also, on our weekends, we're meeting with people for coffee. So it is a lot of our time, and our packets sometimes are 1,000 pages long, and we're going through it in the middle of the night. So I appreciate the raise, but it just also encourages people of diverse backgrounds. If you want a council for the community, you need diverse backgrounds and equity and inclusion, and this helps strengthen that. So I appreciate it, and I support it also.
Thank you, Pernita. Appreciate that. With that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll do it. I move to introduce ordinance number 1610. 1610. An ordinance of the City of San Carlos amending the San Carlos Municipal Code, Chapter 2.08.020 to increase the City Council salary under Government Code Section 35616. 36516, sorry.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Crystal, can you please call roll?
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
And Mayor Dugan?
Yes. The item passes 5-0. Moving on to new business 8C, consideration of appointments to city council subcommittees and ad hoc committees for 2024. Jeff, I think you're presenting to us on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, every year the City Council takes a look at their commission appointments and subcommittee appointments. We begin that process by reaching out to the council members individually to find out what preferences or changes they might have. Oftentimes there are, life changes that happen over the course of the year, and a lot of these meetings are regularly scheduled, particularly outside appointments. So sometimes there's a need to make changes. Often in a year where we have changes in terms of our council makeup due to an election, there are need to make quite a few changes to rework those assignments. This year we got very little feedback from the council in terms of a need or desire to make changes. We did identify a few subcommittees internal to the city that we felt like in 2024 weren't going to be particularly necessary. They include the communication subcommittee that helped us with the new website, the employee recruitment and retention subcommittee that did a lot of work on us last year on staff salaries and benefits, and the age-friendly subcommittee whose recommendations and work will be coming back to the City Council in short order. Previously, the mayor and the council had discussed the creation of a new subcommittee, which is the Infrastructure Innovation and Improvement Subcommittee. So we've included that on the list. There is one subcommittee that was inadvertently left off the list, so we'd like to add that back in via your motion this evening when you approve this, or some iteration of this, and that's the Fire Subcommittee that currently is comprised of Vice Mayor McDowell and Councilmember Collins. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments on this item? Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that the proposed list of subcommittees is fine. I would like to propose a new subcommittee since we've eliminated some, and I've given this a lot of thought. It's to be called the Community Benefits Subcommittee, and the reason for this is that there's really no other subcommittee that focuses on community benefits. We've got subcommittees on economic development and child care and 2+2 committee, but we get a lot of funding from developers every year. Every time a project comes through, we charge them housing impact fees, we charge them child care fees. We also charge them community benefit fees, and that, as we know, it totals in the millions of dollars. So I'm thinking that a subcommittee would help the council identify and prioritize what community benefits we want exactly, because we all have different ideas. Would also allow us to allow the council to develop some strategies, study the feasibility and costs of various projects, and also work with staff to come up with a strategy and a detailed planning on what things we want for the community and prioritize them, and then figure out, what's the first thing and what's the second thing, and we could adjust it as we go along. But I think I would like to propose that we add that subcommittee.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Appreciate that. Jeff, do you or any of your staff have a reaction to this potential new subcommittee?
We always love working with our subcommittees. They're very helpful to be able to have access to council members early on in working, through projects or those kinds of things. I would recommend that if we create this subcommittee, we make sure that we don't populate it with council members that are on the Economic Development Subcommittee, because that's the subcommittee that also touches this issue, and they will want to, I'm sure, and we will want them to touch this issue in the future. So that would leave the other three of you to choose between yourselves to populate the subcommittee, I think, so that we don't run into a Brown Act issue as we work on these policies. Obviously, the subcommittees, for members of the public who aren't familiar with that, they help guide us, and they're there to bounce ideas and react to things to make sure that we're on the right track in terms of getting to those council policy goals. However, the final product in pretty much every instance comes back to the full council in the light of day at one of these meetings to be talked about, discussed, and voted on before it's approved. So they're really working bodies that just help us at the staff level get the work done.
Thank you, Jeff. That was helpful. Looks like Councilmember Rack has a comment.
Thank you, Mayor Dugan. I just had, so I'm intrigued with this idea just because I do feel like sometimes we're having, we'll get projects come up before us and they will, the benefits will have been decided, sort of how we're, some of the community, the non sort of formulated ones, sort of like the housing fund and others. But, I feel sometimes we're sort of a little haphazard in how we decide where the fund, like, oh, this is going to go to the downtown fund and this is going to go for, the east side, and this is going to go here. And I don't know that we have a sort of a, I almost would see this maybe if I don't know if Ron's thinking about this in a more, like in a strategic way of how we are prioritizing where we're putting our funding. And maybe as we think through, once we have this bucket of money from the developers, where we do want to spend it. Like we've talked about hearing, getting impact from the community about, a community center, a theater, the downtown. We have lots of priorities, and how we kind of can better align that, I think, is of interest to me. So I think if that's sort of the thought process around it, I'm intrigued with it, and I think it could be a good idea. And I think the only thing I just want to make sure if we're doing that on the Brown Act, how does that impact the Economic Development Subcommittee? So does that mean we could no longer talk about community benefits in that subcommittee?
No, that's not.
We're separate, not talking to them.
That's correct. The Brown Act exists between council members, not between council members and staff. So as long as you're not communicating your ideas to one another and you're simply communicating them to us, there's no problem there. And as you know from past history, just like with your commissions, also with your staff, sometimes the subcommittees agree in terms of they have the same vision. Sometimes they're different, and then ultimately it'll have to come back to the 5 of you. Sometimes you get a planning commission recommendation that ultimately the 5 of you don't agree with, or even sometimes the staff doesn't agree with, and we'll bring you competing recommendations and say, this is what the planning commission's recommending, this is what the staff is recommending, and then you all will be the final voice in the decision-making process. Same is true when you have subcommittees that are touching the same type of projects. So.
That's helpful. Thank you, Jeff. I'm good.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Venkatesh?
Thank you, Mayor Dugan. I was just going to say I appreciate this, Councilmember Collins. I know when we get our packets and there's community benefits, I'm always questioning, like, how did you get this number? And it's just hard during a public event to ask those questions sometimes, so I really appreciate this.
Thank you for that. And just, is it Vice Mayor McDowell and Councilmember Venkatesh that you guys are the Economic Subcommittee? Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just chime in and say that, I do know community benefits is a large item. We've had a couple of large projects in the past 6 months that, we've spent a lot of time even here in chamber with the applicants talking about community benefits. So it occurs to me that the more that can be done before it gets to the council, likely the better, and more alignment can be found. So I'm supportive of the new subcommittee. I appreciate Ron bringing that before us. I guess I'll put it to Ron. Did you have any thoughts on the composition of this subcommittee?
I would have no problem serving, but if not me, it would not bruise my ego if you and Pranita were on it. I'd leave that up to you, so.
I appreciate that, Ron. I will say I'm not looking for extra committee assignments, so perhaps
I'm happy to
the two
serve.
of you can move forward on that one. And Pranita and I are on downtown now, so that might be nice.
Okay, thanks.
And I also know, Ron, your clock is ticking on getting your chosen community benefit figured out here. So
it only took me 13 years to come up with it.
Very good. Are there any public comments on this item?
I do not have any slips for in-person, and there are no hands on Zoom.
Okay, very good. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve this item, which would involve two additions: the Fire Service Subcommittee with Vice Mayor McDowell and Councilmember Collins, and a new Community Benefits Subcommittee with Councilmember Collins and Councilmember Venkatesh. So I would entertain a motion in that regard.
I'll take a stab at this one. I move to approve the mayor's appointment of city council members to boards, committees, and authorities with two amendments. Number one, to include the fire subcommittee with Vice Mayor McDowell and Councilmember Collins, and a new community benefits subcommittee with Councilmember Venkatesh and Councilmember Collins.
Second.
Terrific. We have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll call, Crystal?
Councilmember Venkatesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Gadugan?
Yes. Terrific. With that, it's passed. And I'll just comment that it was just enjoyable looking through that list of what we're all interested in, specifically at the county level, and how we've all found how we like to add value at the county, and there was very little desire to move or change. So I think that bodes well to our representation on those committees. Moving on to item 10, or item 9, agenda setting. I don't see any potential agenda items listed, but does anyone have something they'd like us to consider for a future agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 10, public comment. This is for items not on the posted agenda. If you're joining via Zoom and would like to address the council, please raise your hand at this time. Once we begin taking public comments on Zoom, we will not allow additional commenters to join the queue, so please be sure to raise your hand now so that you'll have a turn to speak. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. If the item you are speaking on is not listed on the agenda, please advise that the City Council may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act. The City Council's general policy is to refer items to staff for attention or to have a matter placed on future City Council agenda for more comprehensive action or report and formal discussion and input at that time. Crystal, do we have any folks for public comment?
Yes, we do have one slip for in-person, and I see that there are no hands on Zoom.
Thank you. We will hear from the in-person comment.
Norm Torello?
Welcome, Norm.
My name is Norm Torello, and I'm speaking to you tonight about MELP, which stands for Medical Equipment Loan Program. Many of you are already familiar because you came to our grand opening over the summer. But for those of you not familiar, we are an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization that receives used or no longer needed durable medical equipment from the community, and then after inspecting, repairing, and cleaning it, we loan it out at no cost for free to anyone who needs it. Loaned equipment includes things like wheelchairs, transport chairs, rollators, walkers, knee scooters, shower chairs and benches, tub transfer benches, the list goes on, but since I'm limited in my time, I won't. We loan these items out again for free. Clients keep loaned equipment as long as they need them. When it's returned to us, we again inspect it, clean it, and repair it to make it available to others. Our program has 3 goals in mind: to reduce medical equipment inequity, to improve the quality of life for our clients by reducing economic stressors and giving them a better daily living situation, and by reusing existing equipment, we keep it out of landfills. Any equipment that can't be reloaned is disassembled, and the metals and plastics go into recycling. For this loan program to work, we need to receive people's equipment when they're no longer needing it. With that in mind, we are doing a drive next Saturday, the 20th, all day on Saturday between 9 and 4 at our intake facility located at 1625 El Camino Real in Belmont. I encourage all of you that have friends with DME stuck in their attics, garages, basements, or just tripping over it at home to ask them to get it to us on Saturday the 20th. And lastly, I just wanted to point out the fact that we also have a sister organization called Able Closet that runs a similar program for children in need. And the advantage of that program is that that equipment can cost many thousands of dollars and take many, many months to obtain. We provide it on demand to anyone that needs it. I've left a brochure with each of you just so you could become more familiar with our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'm a big supporter of MELP. I think it's just a fantastic community organization, and it's just, it's pretty ideal in almost every way, reusing equipment and helping people who need the help, and it just makes a lot of sense. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for staying throughout the meeting to give that as public comment, and I would invite you in future years to just reach out to our city clerk, and would be more than welcome to have you give a presentation at the beginning of our meeting and do it more up front. So appreciate it. Thank you. Terrific. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one additional public comment.
How's it going? Good evening. I'm here on behalf of San Mateo JATC, the IBW, and I just wanted to thank you guys for all the work you've been giving us lately, past couple years. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you for the comment, and appreciate you staying through the meeting to give us that. And yes, more construction in town is a good thing. If there's no further comment, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Well, thank you.